This episode is about the number 22 team on the Juggernaut Index, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's assume that these four things were all you knew about the number 22 team in the Juggernaut Index. Number 1, they have only one player who ranks inside the overall top 50. Number 2, their starting quarterback won't appear in a game until week 6 at the earliest. Number 3, they just placed their starting right tackle on injured reserve, ending his season. And number 4, back in April they traded a 1,200-yard wide receiver for a 5th-round draft pick. Based on those facts, you'd have to say that this ranking seems about right. Perhaps even generous. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a complicated team, however. They're only 18 months removed from a Super Bowl victory, and they finished 7th in the NFL in total yards last season with 371.3 per game. If they could have simply a quiet, healthy, law-abiding offseason, the Steelers would have entered 2010 with a roster full of upper-tier talent. Of course, the offseason wasn't quiet for Pittsburgh. The Steelers will enter 2010 with Byron Leftwich at quarterback because Ben Roethlisberger has been suspended for a minimum of 4 games for violations of the league's personal conduct policy. It's actually a 6-game suspension, but the commissioner can reduce it to 4 or potentially increase it. Roethlisberger has authored several astonishing on-field moments, and he's coming off the best fantasy season of his career. He's also authored some appalling off-field moments, some alleged, some confirmed, and he hasn't met a wake-up call he couldn't ignore. In our game, there's never any reason to debate whether a player is too morally objectionable to roster. We're simply drafting the stats associated with real-life players who may or may not be objectionable. There's no fan base to consider, no corporate partners. We do not share the Rooney family's problems, but we do need to manage around league-imposed suspensions, and we have to consider the implications of a prolonged absence when evaluating fantasy potential. In the best-case scenario for Roethlisberger, he'll miss the first 4 weeks of the season, and he won't assist anyone in Week 5 because the Steelers have a bye. So if you draft him, you'll need to stash him on your bench until mid-October. We can pretty much guarantee that if you start the fantasy season with an 0-2 record, you'll drop Roethlisberger like a burning coal. Or you'll trade him to a 2-0 team that's better positioned to wait for his return. None of the Yahoo analysts ranked Roethlisberger higher than 17th at his position. There's just no way to justify a starting rank for a guy who's going to miss more than a third of your fantasy season. The monolithic Leftwich is the clear favorite to replace Roethlisberger in Week 1. He offers no obvious upside. In his last NFL start, Leftwich went 7 for 16 for 22 passing yards and 1 pick, as his Bucs were eviscerated by the Giants, 24-0. His career passer rating is 79.6, his completion percentage is 58.3, and his touchdown to interception ratio is 1.4 to 1. In some ways, Leftwich is actually a safe option for Coach Mike Tomlin's team, because there's zero chance that he'll ignite a quarterback controversy. Dennis Dixon is plan B, if or when Leftwich falters. But with anyone other than Roethlisberger at the controls, the Steelers' offense will be relatively uninteresting and in all likelihood one-dimensional. That single dimension will belong to third-year running back Rashard Mendenhall, a player who's looking to build on a terrific 2009 campaign. Mendenhall rushed for 1,108 yards last season, 4.6 yards per carry, and he reached the end zone 8 times. If Pittsburgh hadn't been so stubbornly committed to Willie Parker over the first 3 weeks of the season, or alternately, if Mendenhall had been stubbornly committed to his playbook, then Rashard's final year-end stats would have been even more impressive. The Steelers are expected to be a more balanced, run-focused team in 2010, and thus less Ben-dependent. The only real concern with Mendenhall are the quality of the Steelers' offense overall, and the possibility that rookie Jonathan Dwyer will steal short yardage and goal line carries. The 235-pound Dwyer was a touchdown machine at Georgia Tech, 35 and 515 carries, though he's transitioning to a pro game from a triple option offense. While Roethlisberger sits, it's going to be difficult to rely on the Steelers' receiver corps. Santonio Holmes, also suspended, was traded to the Jets during the offseason, but he'll be replaced by Mike Wallace, a second-year wideout who was uncommonly useful as a rookie, 39 receptions for 756 yards and 6 touchdowns. I've not had a rookie wide receiver play that well in 12 years, said his offensive coordinator Bruce Arians. Wallace has serious speed. 7 of his catches went for 40-plus yards last year, and he developed a remarkable connection with his quarterback. Improvisation between Roethlisberger and Wallace resulted in a few game-changing completions last season. But again, we won't see Ben until week 6. This fact limits Wallace's short-term potential, though he's still our number 28 fantasy receiver in the composite ranks. Hines Ward returns for his millionth season. You'll find him 9 spots above Wallace in our rankings. Ward is 34 years old, but he caught 95 passes last year for 1,167 yards, so there's no reason yet to predict a fade. He's presently leading the Let's Run All Day course in Pittsburgh, no doubt because he's one of the league's most lethal blockers. In a points per block league, you're all over Ward. Behind Ward and Wallace on the depth chart, it's a junk pile, with Antoine Randall and Arnaz Battle at the top. Rookie burner Emmanuel Sanders should be on the Dynasty League radar, but that's it. Heath Miller is back for another season as the most familiar name in your league's free agent pool. Pittsburgh's defense had a forgettable season in 2009. William Gay actually had his memory erased by Adrian Peterson in Week 7, so he can't recall a thing. The Steelers remained excellent against the run, 89.9 yards per game in the rushing category, but their secondary was at times torched, notably in that horrific fourth quarter against Oakland. Troy Polamalu's return to health is essential for this unit. We were bullish on this team in our early ranks, placing them 5th overall, but the Pittsburgh IDPs to target are linebackers James Harrison with 79 tackles and 10 sacks, Lamar Woodley with 63 tackles and 13.5 sacks, Lawrence Timmons with 78 tackles and 7 sacks, and James Ferrier, 102 tackles and 3 sacks, as well as Polamalu. Here's my bottom line on the Steelers for fantasy purposes. Every skilled player needs to be downgraded at the beginning of the year due to Roethlisberger's absence. At the end of the season, in weeks 13 through 15, Pittsburgh will face 3 of the stingiest defenses in 2009. Baltimore, then Cincinnati, then the New York Jets. That's a brutal stretch. And it happens to occur during the 3 most important weeks on the fantasy calendar. The Steelers will win games. Mendenhall will be a reliable asset throughout the season, and weeks 6 through 12 are promising, but there's uncertainty here too. I've drafted and mocked a dozen leagues since February, including 4 this week, and I tend to veer away from Steelers whenever they're next in queue. If Juggernaut Index is supposed to have any relationship to my own draft habits, that's a characteristic I just assigned it, by the way, that I can't reasonably rank this team any higher. I won't own many Steelers. Make me regret it, Pittsburgh.